Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and available at Best Buy now is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold5, Samsung's latest flagship foldable that goes a little flatter and refines everything else.
The Galaxy Z Fold is like a 5-year-long plan or project for Samsung. It has been it's been in a constant state of refinement each year. So, and the refinement is the key word here. It's not an overhaul. The device has not been overhauled since it's been introduced. And the 5 is effectively, it achieves something that Samsung's been trying to achieve from the beginning, which is that it's flattened the device completely. So prior to that, with the previous hinges, you always had that gap there at that point over here, but that's no longer the case. And Samsung's not caught up to competitors who had managed to do the same. And so what you have now is a true foldable in that it lies flat, which is always great. And they did it by making the device slightly lighter, slightly slimmer, and at the same time making it also a little smoother when it comes to opening it up or closing it, which is always nice. Samsung claims that the hinge is more durable, yet also using fewer moving parts. As far as the smoothness that I mentioned, it is limited. I'm not suggesting now that all of a sudden this is like opening a folded piece of paper. It's not like that, but it does feel smooth, but it is sturdy. So even if you are you're making some adjustments, you're going to feel like there's some real give there. At the same time though, you're going to feel like it's also stiff enough that it'll stay in place. This is important for photography purposes, which I'll get to in a second, but it also matters when it comes to when you're quickly opening or closing the phone, depending on what it is you want to do. One thing I've always liked about the Fold is that you can always have a different home screen here on the cover display and then another one altogether on the main display. And that obviously is all about convenience. So on the cover, you might want to access apps that you would want to see quickly. You don't need to open up the phone anyway, like email, maybe messages, things like that. And then of course, for the apps that would require the bigger screen real estate, you can always open it up. Now, again, for those who have used the Fold, I think all this is going to seem really familiar to you, and it's going to act in a very familiar way too. Even though Samsung has pushed widgets a little more in this case, it's still, for the most part, a very similar user interface. The dock at the bottom is still the primary way, in my opinion, to multitask. So if you have a couple of apps put together, you can always access them from the dock and get to them that way. You can do this also with apps that you like to use the most or the most recent ones. That's not a new feature. Samsung had introduced it before, but it does feel a little more refined in this case, right? Which is sort of the common theme here. That goes for the internal components too. So even though the storage and memory are the same, the processor is not. So now we have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, which is speedier, faster, more efficient, and makes things just feel a little smoother on the device. It also has implications on the camera side, which I'll get to in a second. But the point is that when you're using the device, you feel like you are using something that just gets things done in a shorter time, which is always nice. There's nothing really spectacular here as far as, or spectacularly new as far as how the phone works. The widgets again are cool, but not every app uses them. And same thing with multitasking. Not every app necessarily works with all that. You'll have to go to the Samsung Labs in the settings to toggle all that on so that all apps could effectively work that way. Whether they're optimized or not, I think you're going to see that they're probably not. But for the most part, though, it should work fairly well, which is always great. The camera now, I have to get to the camera because here things are interesting. Samsung went with the exact same image sensors that it had in the Fold 4, but it did use different lenses this time. And of course, we have a different image signal processor that is driven by Snapdragon's chipset. So what that means is that you have a little less glare when you're taking photos, courtesy of the coating on the lenses, but at the same time, you also have better rendering and better processing for the photos that you take. So that means then that you'll still get those lush colors. Samsung loves lush colors. Not as saturated as they were before, but if they see a sky or a patch of grass, you're going to get the blues and greens that you're looking for, most likely. But it's also just, even in low light or nighttime shooting, you'll find that the sharpening is not as zealous this time, but also unfortunately it overcompensates for the amount of light. So even if you want a bit of you just want to capture the shot as your eyes see it for the most part, so it's a little dark, but there's some light sources. this phone might just blow those up completely and assume that you want to see absolutely everything lit up in the scene, and it doesn't always look good. So you'll have to make adjustments sometimes with the exposure slider or play around with some of the settings and see how it goes. But for the most part, the photos will look good. They, in my opinion, are not on par with a phone that costs this much, but I get it. Samsung had to cut corners somewhere, and they did it with the camera. So that's why you're not going to get the quality photos that you would get with the Galaxy S23 Ultra, for instance. These photos are probably more in line with the regular Galaxy S23, and maybe even in some cases not even that good. So just bear that in mind if you're looking at this as your main photography device. I will say though, what this does that those others don't do is deployment. So when you have a foldable device like this, you can angle it in so many different ways and take photos in just very interesting perspectives and do things that are not as easy to do with conventional smartphones. So when it comes to creativity, the phone definitely offers plenty when it comes to that, just simply because of how you can place it. I will recommend though that you get a case so that you can protect it a little bit, because if you do lay it down, the cover screen is exposed and so it might scratch. There's Gorilla Glass protection, but don't always trust that, depending on what kind of surface you're putting it down. Plus, you may also want a case because of the S Pen. Now, the S Pen does not come with the phone, but it is compatible. Just look for, if you're getting the Fold 5, look for the Fold 5 edition of the pen. It's a special pen specifically for it. There's no holster for the pen. You'll have to get a case that has a holster for it, like this one here. That way you're protecting the phone and you have a holster for the pen, so you have double convenience that way, right? The pen works the same though. There's nothing really dramatically different here. It works the same as it would have before. It's just a matter of just having one with the device. Quickly about battery life, it is not exceptional here. It's okay, it's pretty good, but chances are you will have to charge this at the end of the day, every day. I understand why. The screen brightness is even higher than it was before. And also, you just have two screens going on here. So if you're constantly using the device, you're multitasking, you're watching video, you're doing all the things that you probably should be doing on a foldable phone, yeah, the battery's going to take a bit of a hit. And unfortunately, because the battery's not bigger this time around, there's no real change that way. You have to rely on the efficiencies of the Snapdragon chipset, which can only go so far. So even though, again, this is a great gaming device too, you just have to keep in mind that you will probably need to keep a charger nearby, or just sort of ration how you're using it until you can get there. Quickly summarize, I would not recommend upgrading to the Fold 5 if you have the Fold 4. I just don't think there's enough of a difference there. I think this is highly incremental. If you have the Fold 3 or earlier though, I think you'll feel like there's a bigger jump here, not just for the aesthetics, but also because I think the functionality just will feel a little different, simply because it's faster, but also a little more efficient and refined, right? Again, that's the buzzword here, is refinement, and that's exactly what the device offers. So if you're looking for that from an earlier model, you probably will get it here. And that's my review of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5, available now at Best Buy. You can check out more about it by just clicking the link here below, and you can see other great products there as well. And for the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.